A ruthless mercenary with a dark past, a deadly secret buried in the shadows. When Dwayne Johnson's character, known only as Hyena, is betrayed and hunted, he must face the ultimate enemy, one he never saw coming. In a world where loyalty is a myth and survival is brutal, the hunter becomes the hunted. Will he conquer the beast within, or will the past devour him first? A lone figure emerged from the shadows of the ruined city, his broad silhouette cutting through the dense fog like a blade. His name was whispered in fear across the underworld. Hyena, a mercenary, a hunter, a man without a past. Clad in battle-worn armor, two swords strapped across his back, he carried himself with the weight of 1,000 battles. Tonight, however, was different. Tonight, the hunt was personal. The neon lights flickered as he moved through the back alleys of the lawless district, his eyes scanning every shadow. The city was rotting from the inside out, controlled by syndicates and warlords who thrived on blood and betrayal. But Hyena had never cared for politics. His only rule? Finish the job. That rule was shattered when he realized the job was him. He stopped in front of an old warehouse, the last lead he had. The tip-off had come from an informant who died before he could explain further. Something about a secret experiment, something about him. The steel doors groaned as he pushed them open, revealing a dimly lit room lined with surveillance monitors. Footage played on a loop, him years ago, in places he didn't remember. Images of people he was sure he had never met, yet they spoke his name like they knew him. A whisper cut through the static. "You were never meant to wake up." The voice belonged to a man standing in the center of the room, flanked by guards and tactical gear. Hyena recognized him instantly. Voss, a name that once belonged to a friend. The betrayal had no warning, no signs. Just like that, a lifetime of trust had turned to dust. "You sold me out," Hyena said, his voice calm despite the storm brewing inside him. "I didn't sell you out," Voss smirked. "I owned you from the beginning." The first gunshot cracked through the silence. Hyena moved before the second came, flipping the table for cover. Bullets tore through the air as he dove behind a stack of crates. Grabbing a smoke grenade from his belt, he yanked the pin and tossed it forward. The room filled with thick, swirling clouds, and in that chaos he struck. His blade sliced through the first attacker before he even knew he was dead. The second went down with a single twist of his wrist, a bullet finding its home between his eyes. By the time the smoke cleared, only two men remained standing. Hyena and Voss. Voss laughed, clapping slowly. "Still the best," he mused, "but not good enough." The floor beneath them rumbled. From the far end of the warehouse, the shadows shifted. A low growl rumbled through the space, primal and menacing. Then they emerged. Not just any hyenas. These were something else. Larger, faster, their eyes glowing with an eerie yellow light. They weren't just animals. They were engineered. Hyena's fist clenched as the pieces fell into place. "It was never about the job, was it?" Voss tilted his head. "No," he said simply. "It was always about you." The first beast lunged. Hyena barely dodged, rolling out of the way as its razor-sharp fangs snapped inches from his throat. He unsheathed his swords, their steel gleaming under the flickering lights. The creature circled, calculating. The next attack came faster, but this time he was ready. His blade cut through fur and flesh, but the hyena barely flinched. Adrenaline surged as he moved, every step a dance between life and death. The fight was brutal, unrelenting. By the time the last beast fell, blood dripping from its maw, Hyena was breathing hard, his arms aching from the battle. Voss had vanished. Of course, he had. The coward never fought his own wars. The walls around him trembled as an explosion ripped through the warehouse. Hyena barely had time to react before the shock wave sent him crashing through the window, landing hard onto the rain-soaked pavement below. Fire licked at the night sky as the building collapsed behind him. He needed answers, and he knew exactly where to get them. The underground fight club was the kind of place where law and morality didn't exist. A neon sign flickered above the entrance, half the letters broken. Inside, the air was thick with sweat, smoke, and the stench of blood. The fighters here were brutal, unhinged, and most of them had nothing to lose. Hyena found his mark at the far end of the room, a man named Reyes, a black market scientist turned information broker. He was Hyena's last link to the truth. The moment Reyes saw him, panic flickered across his face. He turned to run, but Hyena was faster. One swift movement, and Reyes was slammed against the concrete wall, a knife pressed against his throat. Tell me what I am, Hyena growled. You don't want to know. The blade pressed harder. Ray's exhaled sharply. They built you, he said. You were part of the program, the Heine Initiative. They didn't just train you, they changed you. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. You're lying. You ever wonder why you don't remember anything before a certain point? Why you don't age like the others? You weren't recruited, Hyena, you were created. The weight of those words crushed him. Memories that didn't exist, a past that had never been his. Before he could process it, the room erupted in chaos. More soldiers, more betrayal. A gunfight broke out, and the club became a war zone. Hyena fought like a man possessed, his body moving on instincts that weren't entirely his own. He carved through the opposition, but there were too many. Ray's was dead before he even hit the floor, a bullet through his skull. Hyena barely made it out alive. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. Voss was waiting atop an abandoned skyscraper. The city sprawled below them. The storm raged overhead, lightning casting eerie shadows across the rooftop. You finally understand now, don't you? Voss said. You were never a man. You were an experiment, a prototype. Hyena's hands tightened around his blades. Then I guess that makes you a loose end. The battle was vicious. Steel clashed against steel. Fists met flesh, bones cracked. Voss was strong and handsome like him, but he wasn't as fast. He wasn't as hungry. The end came with a final strike, Hyena's blade piercing Voss's chest, the tip emerging from his back. Voss gasped, blood spilling from his lips. You think this ends with me? He choked out. Hyena twisted the blade. I don't care. With one final push, he sent Voss plummeting over the edge. The storm raged on, but for the first time, Hyena felt something close to peace. He wasn't who he thought he wasn't even human, but he was free.